Happy Friday, third and fourth graders. The weekend is here. Are you excited? I'm excited. I'm excited to teach you about this new thing. All right, here we go. Yesterday we talked about, We talked about text features yesterday. Text features are features that are found in a nonfiction text, and nonfiction means that it is what? You guessed it, real. Nonfiction are real books, real texts. Today we're just going to focus on one specific text feature. We talked about yesterday how pictures and illustrations are text features. And we're going to kind of just focus on that and talk about why are pictures and illustrations helpful. So our learning target today is I can explain how a picture helps me better understand the text. So authors don't just throw pictures in there just to throw them in there. There's usually a reason why they include specific pictures. We're going to look at that today. So if you think back to when we were in school, and we learned a little bit about MISDIV, right? We learned that the MI is for main idea, which we've gone over on, when did we go over that? Wednesday, main idea, and SD for supporting details. So you guys should be able to find the main idea with supporting details. We're going to focus on this I today. The I stands for illustrations, okay? So illustrations and pictures give us good information. They help us visualize what is happening. And without pictures, we would miss key information. It really paints the picture for you instead of kind of taking a guess at what the author's talking about. It gives it right in front of your face so you can look at what the author is trying to explain to you. So they're really, really helpful. Take 10 seconds. I want you to predict or guess, why do you think pictures and illustrations are important? Like, I'm sitting here telling you that they're important, but why do you think they are? Either talk to yourself or talk to the person you're with. Tell them, why do you think pictures and illustrations are important in a book? Go. Okay, let's check some things out. So, bear with me. I need to switch my screens. Yesterday, I brought up this book about the Titanic. Okay, I didn't read it to you. We kind of just flipped through and looked at some text features. Before we start, I want you to either talk to yourself or tell someone next to you. Just name some text features we learned about yesterday. Not illustration or pictures, because we're going to go over that. What was some other text features we went over? Take 10 seconds. Brainstorm. On this page, there's a text feature right in front of us. What is this? The table of contents. And the table of contents shows us what's going to be in the book and where we can find it, what page numbers. Okay, so before I start, remember that the Titanic was a big cruise ship. This happened a long time ago. There were a lot of people on it, and it hit a big iceberg. And when it hit a big iceberg, it put a hole in the boat, or the cruise ship. So when it put a hole in it, what do you think happened? You guessed it. Water started to come onto the boat, and the Titanic started to sink, this big ship. So there was a bunch of people on this ship. The iceberg punctured a hole through the bottom of it, and it started to take on water and sink. So they were all frantic because they were trying to save a bunch of people, because they were in the middle of the ocean. They had nowhere to go. So as I flip through here, keep that in mind. As I flip through, we're really just going to focus on these pictures and illustrations. So since this was a long time ago, they don't really have many real photographs of the Titanic. So a lot of these are illustrations. And we talked about yesterday the difference between a photograph and an illustration is a photograph is real. Someone actually took it with a camera. An illustration is something that was drawn or painted, okay? And remember, we talked about captions. And captions are important because it tells us what the illustration is or what the picture is. So here's our first picture. Well, if I just look at this, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. I think we're at the bottom of the ocean maybe, but what is this? Well, if you look over here, illustration of Titanic shipwreck, 1985. So in 1985, this is when the shipwreck happened. And this is someone's drawing of the shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean. Okay? Now I want you to think, why is this illustration important? What information is this giving us? Keep that in your mind. Okay, here's another picture. We have an actual photograph, and then I'm not sure if this looks like an actual photograph as well. So this is the Titanic's bow, the bow of the boat, the front of the boat. And then over here, this caption says, Robert Ballard and his crew celebrate on board their research ship, the Nor. Oh, the research ship, the Nor. The Nor was the title of the ship, or the name of the ship, after they first spotted wreckage from Titanic in 1985. So they're celebrating. Okay. Why would this picture be important? What can we gather by looking at this? How do you think these people feel? Think they're sad? No, I don't think so. They look really excited, right? Maybe very happy, maybe very proud. Okay, so we can kind of paint a picture of how these people were feeling at the time. This picture, this really shows us how the Titanic looks at the bottom of the ocean. Okay, this gives us a little bit of information, but not much. So sometimes pictures will give you a lot of information. Sometimes pictures will just give you a little bit. Here we have some more illustrations. So again, they don't have any good pictures of the inside of the Titanic. You might have a few, but sometimes they had to make illustrations. So right here, this is an illustration of the grand staircase. What is this picture showing us? How do you think the Titanic was? Do you think anyone could go on the Titanic? What do these people look like? What does the staircase look like? What does the inside look like? I know if I'm looking at this picture, I can tell that the Titanic must have been really fancy. How do I know it's fancy? Well, we have a big grand staircase. These people are in tuxes, suits. This lady's in a nice long pretty dress. It seems like the Titanic was a fancy ship. See how I just learned some information about the Titanic? Now if we look over here at these pictures, why are these important? What do we learn from looking at these pictures? Well, the ship's gym. So it looks like the ship had a gym. Do you think the ship was big or do you think it was small? I'm guessing that the ship was really big if it had a personal gym inside of it. Over here, it says the first class cafe, first class bedroom. First class means like the really ritzy people, probably the people that had a lot of money. They were first class because if they had a lot of money, they were able to pay their way to get some very fancy things. So this is where all the fancy people would have maybe their breakfast or lunch in the cafe. And up here, this is the first class bedroom. I'm wondering, maybe is there a second class bedroom? Second class is a little step down from first class. And then there's third class bedroom, which would be a step down from the second class. See, now I have a bunch of questions. Let's keep going. Wow, this is a really important picture, and I can't just skip over it. We talked about yesterday how these things are all called what? You guessed it, labels. These are all labels, so we know the parts of the boat. So looking at this picture, this illustration, what can I learn? Well, I can learn that the ship is really big. This is not just a little boat, right? This is a big ship. There must have been a lot of people on here. Oh, look it, my questions are answered. Here's the second class cabin and the third class cabin. Where's the first class cabin? Oh, it doesn't show me. It looks like the third class was down low and the second class was a little higher. Maybe the first class was like on the top of the boat because they had the most money. Maybe. Okay, we're learning a lot of information from this one big picture. It says Titanic had 9 decks or levels with separate areas for first class, second class, and third class passengers. Well, there we go. That just confirmed that one, the Titanic is really big because it has 9 decks. Decks means levels, 9 levels. And it kind of confirmed our idea of the first class, second class, and third class idea, where there was a different section for each class. Interesting, let's keep going. This heading, a text feature, says building the Titanic. So what do you think this section is going to be about? Probably building the Titanic, right? So if we look here, it says Titanic being built in Ireland, 1910. So this is a picture of the Titanic being built. What can we learn from this picture? Do you think it was easy to build the Titanic? Do you think it took a long time? Do you think maybe a lot of people had to work on it? It looks to me that this is a big project. A lot of people needed to help out with it. Well, okay, if I look at this picture, what am I looking at? I'm not sure. Oh, look, a caption. Hold on. At the bottom, it says illustration of the Titanic docked at Southampton, England. That's what it says. Hold on. Yes. Okay, so now we know that this is the Titanic. It's docked at shore. People, here's the boardwalk that they're getting onto the ship. Looks like a really big ordeal. Now this is really important. Okay. Why do you think this picture over here? So first of all, this is an iceberg. And if you don't know what an iceberg is, well, here's a fact box. Fact box says an iceberg, a large mass of ice floating in the sea. So an iceberg is a huge piece of ice, okay? The scary thing about icebergs, well, before I tell you, let's look at this picture, okay? So this picture is showing us an iceberg. This is on top of the water, and this is what's below the water. So looking at this picture, do we have a better idea of how icebergs are formed and how they look? Is the iceberg just this little tiny piece on top of the water? No. This picture is so important because it shows us how big an iceberg can be, right? So the scary thing about icebergs is that the ship could have been just sailing on and all the captain sees is this little piece of ice at the top, right? But little does he know what's at the bottom. A big chunk of ice, right? So this picture here helps us to better understand what an iceberg looks like and what it looks like below the surface. This is a good piece of information. Do you think the captain saw this when he was driving or sailing the boat? Do you think he saw this piece that was underwater? I don't know. I'm going to predict that he probably didn't. I'm going to flip to this picture. So here's another, first of all, if I look at this, I'm not really sure what this is, but if I look at the caption, it says illustration showing how the Titanic's compartments flooded. Flooded means the water took over. Okay. So this, first of all, before I tell you why, I want you to turn to someone or tell yourself, talk to yourself, why do you think this picture is important? What information does this picture give you? So first of all, we can see, one, how big the Titanic is. We can see that this part of the boat is in the water, and we can also see, where did it hit? Where did it get a hole, puncture a hole in the boat? Can you see where it started to take on water? Right down here. So this is where it hit. It started to take on water, and then it all went downhill from there. Right? So this picture is really important to show us how the ship hit the iceberg, how it put a hole in the boat, how the water started to take on, the boat started to take on water, right? We learn a lot from this picture. This is a picture of the Titanic sinking. This is a picture of people getting into lifeboats. This kind of can show us some good information of how maybe scared people must have been. People were working frantically trying to save people. And then the ship started to really sink. Okay, so as you guys are reading your nonfiction textbooks, I want you guys to be figuring out, what information are you learning from the pictures? The pictures aren't just there. Yeah, they're there to make the book look pretty, but they serve a better purpose, right? They're there for a specific reason, and the author wants to show you or tell you something, and it's up to you guys to figure out, what is the author trying to show me here? Pictures are super, super important. Okay, so your goal for today is to complete the rest of the Google form. I might post some pictures, and I want you to tell me, what are you learning from the picture? Okay, it might be a picture from this Titanic book, or it might be a picture from another book, but you're going to tell me, why is the picture important and what are you learning from it? Let's see. Okay, so hopefully we hit our learning target. I can explain how a picture helps me better understand the text. Hopefully we were able to accomplish that. Go ahead and finish the rest of this Google form. As always, if you have questions, post them in Google Classroom. If you need to Zoom with us and you're confused about something, just ask and we are here for you. Have fun with it. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend. And we will see you on Monday.